Welcome to the Gospel Wise Author Podcast, the go-to resource for creative Christians like you seeking actionable advice, inspiration, and insight into the modern publishing world. From one independent writer to another, I'm here to empower you to write, publish, and market your books, wielding the pen for the sake of the cross, all for God's glory and your neighbor's gospel good. Again, welcome. Glad you're here. Let's create for Christ together. Hey, creative Christian, Jeremy here with episode 4 of the Gospel Wise Author Podcast. Thrilled you are here and have given me your ear to gain some insight, maybe a little bit of inspiration for your own Gospel Wise author journey. This space is meant to be for people like you, Christian creatives, writers who want to ignite faith in their world through writing, publishing, and marketing the passion projects that Jesus Christ himself has laid on your heart. And this week, this episode is meant for people who are both at the front end of that journey as well as those who are sort of in the middle of it, that I myself have had sort of a love-hate relationship with in my own author journey, stretching back almost 2 decades now when I published my first book in 2008. I'm recording this in February 2025, and along the way, the topic that I want to talk about is something that has been difficult for me to master and also to sort of give myself permission to lean into. It's a topic I've been thinking a lot about recently, particularly as I've been writing some ideas for this space at Cross and Pen to encourage Christian writers to help connect their books, their passion projects, to a world who needs them. And that is this topic and really this question surrounding marketing and whether a Christian should market their books and themselves as a storyteller, an expert, a resourcer, someone who is available to help others with the things that the writer is an expert on or is gifted in, passionate about. This question I've heard in various ways from various authors who have either written books or are considering writing books and have degrees or various levels of experience, expertise as some sort of professional, and they sense this calling to write a book and to publish it, put it out there. But there's this hesitancy, this resistance to then take the next step to market. Now, maybe you totally understand exactly what some of these other authors, writers that I've engaged with are questioning about whether a Christian should engage in the act and the art of marketing. What are those thoughts? How have you considered those questions surrounding promotion and selling and marketing, to use that sort of dirty word that creatives often think about this role, these responsibilities on the other end of the writing process? For you, what is marketing, and should Christians market their stuff, particularly their creative stuff? If I think about my own relationship with this word marketing and the responsibilities that I think we have as authors, because we are also business people. But if I think about my own mindset around this issue, this topic, I think for me, there are a couple of things have surfaced. One, I don't want to bother people. I don't want to intrude on people's lives by saying, hey, here's my thing, consider buying it. That still surfaces now when I think about emailing people. who are on my author email list, even though they gave me permission to do so, they've expressed interest in my work, raising their hand and saying, yeah, here's my email address. Let me know when you have something to sell me, a new book to entertain me, or a resource to give me insight. Go ahead, email me. I still almost hesitate to send those emails out, again, because I have sort of this block around bothering people, which, maybe you do too. I think that's understandable. Again, even though people have given us permission to interrupt their inbox or even their Facebook feed with an advertisement, there's this hesitancy there. And if I search a little deeper, I think that hesitancy stems from imposter syndrome, which you might resonate with yourself. I think most creative people struggle with imposter syndrome, this feeling that they're not good enough, that people will discover that they're just faking it to make it, that the story they just wrote is going to fall flat, that there's plot holes, that it's really not that good, or the insight from a resource and advice stemming from our own experiences and professional skills, somehow now, we're going to be found out for being the faker that we are, that we're really not good enough, we're inadequate, we'll be exposed. So all these feelings of self-doubt begin to creep up when it comes to that, again, as an example, that moment to email my list that I've got a new book out or a sale on one of my other books that has sold decently or I want to revive. Yeah, imposter syndrome, self-doubt, that comes creeping along when it comes to this process of marketing. There's some real talk for you, which I wasn't quite expecting when I went into this podcast, but maybe you can resonate with those feelings that I feel when it comes to engaging, leaning into this responsibility to market, to sell my work. I think there's another spiritual one that also sort of acts as a roadblock to taking on this responsibility. And that is this idea as Christians that we shouldn't promote ourselves, that it's too prideful, that it's something that takes the spotlight off of Jesus and his work in our life or what he's shown us or taught us, and instead swings that spotlight to us instead of Christ. Again, in a spiritual sense, it seems the farthest thing from humility to promote ourselves and to promote our work. All legitimate observations, I think, but as we dive deeper into the podcast episode, I hope that my own mindset shift surrounding how I look at marketing will help you yourself lean into and live out this role and responsibility as a marketer. Because whether you like it or not, that is part of the gig as a creative person. And in the space at Cross and Pen, my interest is to offer you insights and upskilling and inspiration to help you write, publish, and market your own books, your passion projects. And so for me, I view marketing as part of that whole package here at Cross and Pen, but also for the author journey. I have wrestled with this question myself. I continue to wrestle with it. And I'll be the first to admit that this is a big growth area for me as an author myself over the last several years, and especially recently, because so much has changed. I know what to do. I've done the things that you're supposed to do, but there is still this growth curve that I'm on, because a lot of the way that people have marketed books is changing. It has changed, it's continued to change. And so I've been thinking a lot about how to market and particularly connect my own books to the world outside. So when I come to this question, it's something that I've wrestled with. It's something I hear a lot about other people wrestling with. And I wonder and have a gut sense that you are too, which is why I wanted to talk about a little bit what it means to market. Because if you are putting something out into the market, which is what you're doing when you're publishing to Amazon, to Apple Books, to Google, to Barnes & Noble, you're entering into a marketplace. And a marketplace is simply a space where people buy things. That's it. If you're in the market for a car, like I sort of am now, where do you go? You go to a car dealership because that's where people buy cars, and you are entering into the market, and you call yourself, or you label yourself, someone who is in the market for a car because you are in the market. You go to a grocery store, you're going to a market, is how it used to be called, a marketplace, or Amazon is this massive marketplace for buying things or selling things if you're a producer. Same thing for an author. You're entering into a market. And so you need to consider what it means from a publishing side, a business side, but also a marketing side to enter into that market. If you're asking for money for your books, then you are entering into a market, and you are having to sort of play by those market rules at some level. Now, I will say that it is perfectly fine not to ask for money for your creative work. Then, in many ways, what you're engaged with is much more of a creative hobby than a creative business. Again, totally fine for you to just give your creative work away. If you don't want to ask for money, if you don't want to enter into a market, if you don't want to market your books, then just put them out. Send them to people for free. Put it up on a website, on Facebook with a link to a PDF or the ebook files, and that's totally fine. Make blog posts out of them. Give it away to the world. That's something that is respectable. It's okay. It's also respectable and okay to be paid for your experience, for your expertise, for your advice, for your stories that offer escape, entertainment. Let me say this again, and let me reiterate this point for you, gospel-wise author, who is a creative Christian, who has, again, advice, insight, experience, skills that you want to share with the world, or stories and entertainment to delight the world. It is okay for you to charge for that experience, for that entertainment, for that insight and advice to help people solve their problems or to help people find escape. It's funny because the Apostle Paul actually makes this very clear in 1 Timothy, that a worker is worthy of their wage. And that's in the context of elders, overseers of the church, being compensated for their gospel efforts. And what you are doing, what you are engaged with, leaning into this calling, this vocation by Christ himself, to infuse your work, your writing with the gospel, is also worthy to be paid, to be compensated. And if you're with me on that, then what does it mean then to market your books as a Christian? And should we? Where I've landed and what I've written about recently, which I'll post and which you can actually download through my Christian Author 2.0 roadmap, where I've outlined this chapter addressing this exact issue. How to market a book as a Christian and whether or not Christians even should. And what I've landed on is the definition of marketing in the first place, which I hope will give you some insight into marketing, but also freedom to go and do for the sake of the gospel, for the sake of igniting faith. And marketing is nothing more than making a connection. It's about connecting with people as an author. It's about connecting yourself as an author to readers, but it's also about connecting your book to readers and readers to your book and to yourself. Marketing and selling are sort of tied up together, but they are also separate things. Selling comes on the back end, I think, of making a connection, of showing up, of loving somebody enough to tell them, to share with them that you have something that is of value to them. You have something that could help them solve their problem, entertain them, offer some escape for a life that is filled with stress or anxiety or hardship or pain. You are telling them that you are here, that you are showing up to help them in some ways, which at the end of the day is really about loving them. Loving your neighbor who has a problem, who is in pain, who needs help in some way. That's what marketing is. It's about helping people by connecting them to the thing, whatever that is, a story, a study, a resource, that will solve their problem or help relieve a problem in some sort of way. A story does that with a stay-at-home dad who is stressed with all the diaper changing or the nap times or the helping their kids with homework as a homeschool dad. Or I'm speaking for myself as that person, which is why I use myself, because I went to books to find escape and to find entertainment and to just get some relief from a day that was filled with some of that on top of the work I was also doing. So I look to books, I look to stories to find some insight into the world around me. So books were that for me. Maybe you are up to your eyeballs in debt, or know somebody who is up to their eyeballs in debt, or there are people out there who are up to their eyeballs in debt, and you're a financial planner. You went to school as a business person studying business management or financial management. And so you, as a financial planner, you have expertise in helping people manage their finances. And so you know that there are people out there who struggle with managing debt, managing their finances. I was that person for a long time. I was up to debt in my elbows. I spent crazy on credit cards as a young adult and had something like 15 grand in credit card debt that I had to work through. And I found help with some people who gave me advice to work through that. And I'm so grateful because they loved me enough to help connect me to their advice. That's what marketing is. And that's why as Christians, it's okay. And I would say it is a necessity. It is a obligation and a virtue to enter into the market with your advice, with your help, with your escape and entertainment, because that is a way that you are able to love your neighbor. And you know, as a Christian, that's one of Jesus's commands to us. Love God, love your neighbor. That's what it means to fulfill the law, but that's what the law of God is boiled down to. That's what Jesus boiled down the law to. Love God, love your neighbor. And he has extended that law, that requirement for us as his followers to us. And that comes out in a variety of ways, whether paid or unpaid. But at the end of the day, as a business person, as a writer who's entered into the market, you have an obligation to love your neighbor enough to share with them what you know, your advice, to help them connect to your entertainment. And that's what it means, that's what it looks like to market your own work. Wanted to give you that as an encouragement, as a sort of permission-granting bit of advice and insight into part of what it means to be a writer in this modern-day publishing world. We write, we publish what we write, we keep it out there in the market, but we also connect that book, that passion project, to those who need it by doing the hard work marketing that book in all of the variety of ways that are available to us to make those connections and to share what we know with the world around us, to ignite faith, to offer some help, and to love our neighbor as ourself. All right, so let's return back to that original question that I know I have asked. Sometimes I continue to ask, and perhaps you yourself have asked. Is it okay for Christians to market their books themselves? I would say, yeah, absolutely. Not only because the Bible offers us a guide for that rationale, again, Paul letting us know that our gospel work is worthy of being compensated for, but also when we frame what marketing is as making a connection, it reminds us that this act is actually the way that we love our reading neighbor. In other words, selling is serving. I'll probably come back with another episode on that quippy phrase, which I've heard elsewhere, selling is serving, because I think that it is so true. And when we adopt that mindset, when we take on the mind of Christ, when we market, then we turn that sometimes sleazy, slimy feel we may have when we promote our book and ourselves, we turn that on its head, instead recognizing this is how we are actually serving our reading neighbor. When we sell, when we connect what we've written to people who need it most. Again, whether a story, a study, or a resource that offers insight into faith and life, or entertainment and delight. So, Gospel-Wise author, know that you have the permission and know that you have the responsibility to make those connections by sharing what you know, what you've written with your world. Thank you for listening to the Gospel-Wise Author Podcast. Truly hope you found it empowering and inspiring, equipping you with the insights you need to wield the pen for the sake of the cross. Take your author journey further with handy tools and faith-fueled training to confidently lean into and live out your spirit-led ministry at gospelwiseauthor.com. Episode show notes and a transcript of this episode can be found at crossandpen.com/podcast. And remember, I'm here for you. If I can come alongside you in your unique vocation, reach out at crossandpen.com/contact. Now go, create for Christ.